This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, and welcome to Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network powered by Raven International. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. This is the show where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to create a life you love. And as always, I'm here to help you understand your dreams. So if you've got a dream that's got you stumped, email me at debbie@dreampowerradio.com. I can help you interpret your dream or answer any general questions you may have about dreams. So again, you can email me at debbie@dreampowerradio.com. Now, if you're hearing me on the podcast, you can't see me, but I'm actually on location today at, of all places, a gym. Why is that? Well, to me, in order to have your dream life the way you really want it to be, you have to also be in physical shape. So we're going to talk about one of the best ways to get into physical shape with my special guest, Patrick Spring. Patrick is a personal trainer, owner of a gym, and the author of the book, which I'm going to hold up here, is Intrinsic Resistance Training, Health and Physical Perspectives. And with that, I'm going to welcome Patrick. So, welcome to Dream Power Radio, Patrick.
Thank you for having me. I'm a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I tell you, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I'm really glad I have the opportunity to do this. So, I want to talk about IRT. What is Intrinsic Resistance Training?
Okay, well, it is a mouthful to start off with, but basically it's a way of doing resistance training and working out in a way where you put your body first and the way the body should move optimally to lift heavy weight. And that's primarily what it's about. So a way to put resistance on your body and get maximal results to work in the most efficient and effective way possible. And it's a way that you can do whether you're 40 or 20 or even 80. And that's the goal, that it's not a style, it's more based off of what your body is capable of and maximizing that for each workout.
Okay, so how would this be different from what you would do in any ordinary regular gym?
It's a good question. And a lot of times in resistance training nowadays and fitness nowadays, a lot of things are being combined and throwing in, which is a great thing. But intrinsic resistance training is very specific about working around your body and picking out equipment that best suits how the body can move in its major movement patterns. So it's more kind of harnessing the potential of the major movements and making those work for you. So the exercises, again, are you're being very specific about what you're doing with your posture, your understanding about how you're using your core in each exercise. So those are the major differences: the awareness, the body awareness, the listening to your body. Those are the aspects that are really emphasized in intrinsic resistance training.
And you think that a lot of people are actually doing workouts wrong?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are doing workouts that actually damage their body and that in the long term are hurting them rather than helping them. And to your point, talking about dreams, how can you dream if you're can't sleep because your neck aches or your lower back aches? So in the vein of trying to do something that's supportive to your health rather than, that's destroying your health, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so in your book, you actually come up with a number of principles that can make up your version of IRT. Can you go into that and explain what they are?
Definitely. I have the book here, so I can cheat. I'll make it the brief version. If I don't have the book in front of me, I might go off on long tangents. But just basically, principle one is just listen to your body and work out mindfully. And that's a major aspect. I think so oftentimes when it comes to fitness, we think about working through the pain, and pain is weakness leaving the body, and no pain, no strain, no gain, all those old sayings. But in reality, you really do have to be mindful of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. And if you're not feeling it in the targeted muscle group, or you're feeling something, some weird thing in your lower back, or you can't breathe, maybe you should stop, adjust the exercise. Number two is basically it's going to be posture, because everything's starting from your posture. If you're in the wrong place when you start, you're not going to be able to move once you've started from a position of weakness. And I said that wrong. That's actually number 3. Number 2 is actually breathing, because your breath acts as your inner support. And if you're not breathing right, if you're in a state of fight or flight because you're almost hyperventilating, that's not going to be the best way to work out, because that inner support is every time you're doing that repetitious exercise. That's very important for that to be the foundation of each and everything you do.
And it's very important where you breathe when you're doing the movement of the exercise.
Yeah, when you're the most vulnerable in the exercise, or when the muscles are most extended, generally in those major muscle movements, you want to have the in-breath coming in, so you have that support. So like at the bottom of a squat, you want to be breathing in at the bottom, and then you can breathe out at the top when you're standing and you're under less stress. And the other parts of it are being really specific about what's going on with posture, because we think a lot of times about working core, you're just doing crunches and twists and all these things from now the cows come home, which isn't wrong, but if you need to pay attention to when you're in major movements, that you're actually able to maintain optimal posture, because that's core work in a really different, useful and functional way that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, I just want to take a step back and say, tell me your definition of core, and what is core in terms of workout movements?
Yeah. In terms of the major movements, core is being able to maintain posture. In opposition to, if you're squatting and your body's being pulled forward, you don't want to overcompensate, but just maintaining that posture is stopping you from, or just maintaining that posture is an effort. Or if you're being pulled back in a push-up, you don't want to let yourself sway, you want to stay nice and neutral. We look at it in an obvious plank position. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm working my core in a plank when they're static and they're just holding themselves there, but then they get in a push-up and their body's all over the place. So it's just a way of bringing that into each and every major exercise, and really being aware from the start that, okay, this is where the exercise is pulling me, my posture. Maintaining neutral is going to be the challenge. And know that if you have a weight in one hand, you're probably going to be pulled one way, so you want to maintain that neutral. So,
yeah. That's how you get benefit from the exercise then.
Yeah, benefit from the exercise and hopefully not injure yourself in the process.
Exactly. So what are some of your other principles?
The foot position, that's hugely important. If you're letting your feet collapse in with no control, that's going to start the exercise off from a real point of disadvantage, and it's going to be hard to correct it. So you really want to be aware of, have 3 points of contact in your foot: your heel, the ball of the big toe, and the ball of the little toe. So your foot's in a good position where it can be a stability and a foundation to all the rest of the movements. If that goes, everything else ends up going. And then in combination with that, just sticking with the major movement patterns. Again, I alluded to it earlier. People get into, it's great that there's so much variety, but you want to, when you're lifting weight, it's serious change that you're going to enact on the body. So you want to make sure that you're doing movements that frankly, if you were outside and you're going to lift a heavy rock, you wouldn't just go down on one leg and maybe on an unstable surface. You'd try to do it in a way that was most conducive to getting that heavy weight up and not injuring yourself, and using the major muscle groups. And if you did it one time, you'd probably have respect for that weight and do it properly. But what happens in the gym is we get in the gym and you start talking to your friend, you start doing an exercise over and over again, and you just kind of lose respect for what you're doing, and you stop being mindful, and that can potentially lead to injuries, like immediate acute injuries, or for sure over time it's going to cause you some problems and lead to chronic injuries, which we don't want either of those.
Right. And this is a good idea to do the same routines over and over, or is it better to mix things up?
It's definitely a good idea to do routines consistently. You do want to mix things up, but I think about 20 years we had one extreme where everyone was doing the exact same routine every single time, and then maybe 15, 17 years ago it started to shift, and now for the last 17 to 20 years it's been all mixing things up, so much so that the body really doesn't have an opportunity to adapt to the demand. And the reason, say, a football player and a ballet dancer and an ice skater all look different from one another is because they've done that demand over and over again, and their body starts to adapt and change. So you want to do something in the middle where you have a basic group of exercises that you follow, and then you want to do variations of them. Variations you can do, it's discussed in the book, are weight. You can do, when you do heavier weight, you do less repetitions. When you do less weight, you can do more repetitions. And variations like we've talked about before, like alternating arms or one arms. That's going to be more emphasis on core work. So you can switch things up in a way that doesn't completely change the modality that you're doing. You still want to be doing a squat, and squat can look like a lunge pattern or a side lunge, all different things, but you don't have to be like jumping rope with weights in your hands or boxing with weights in your hands, because there's better ways. Jumping rope is great, so just jump rope and go box. Don't put weights in your hands and mess up your timing and potentially make yourself more vulnerable if you want to actually improve your boxing skill. So.
Right. Well, you talked a second ago about football players and ballerinas. So everybody comes in different body shapes, body types, male, female, whatever.
Yes.
Is there, would you say that your exercises are geared for everyone, or are there specific exercises that are better for certain people other than others?
In IRT, because it's built around the human body and how it functions kind of optimally to lift weight, and those are the major movements: squatting, pulling, and pushing. Everybody is gonna everybody is gonna benefit from their body working in the way it's designed to work. The human body has certain muscles in it, tendons, ligaments, fascia, and it works well in a certain way. So when everyone's gonna squat, relative to their body, there might be some adjustments you make, but in general, a squat is gonna be their strongest way of getting something off the ground. There's certain ways to pull, and pulling with your back musculature and engaging that instead of just doing it all with your arms is going to be better for everyone, no matter what their age, sex, anything, their preferred sport, they're going to do better. When you're doing a push-up, it's going to be better to be doing it with your major muscle group, your chest, versus your arms. So it really does cross over and benefit everyone. The exercise intensity might change, the weights may change, certain variations may change, but in general, it's going to look pretty similar for my 20-year-olds all the way up to my 80-year-olds.
Okay. Aside from the exercises themselves, you also stress nutrition as being an important factor. Could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, there's so many extremes in nutrition as there is in fitness, but the main thing I talk about in IRT is just the basics of nutrition, and drinking enough water and making small changes at a time, and eating the right amount of calories, and keeping some time between dinner and breakfast. It doesn't have to be like intermittent fasting where you leave 12 to 16 hours before you, depending on your sex. If you're a female, 12 to 14, male, 12 to 16, between dinner and breakfast. But it could be something that leave like a few hours before you go to bed. Don't eat right before you go to bed, because obviously you can't sleep, you're heavy, your body can't recover and do what it's designed to do. And a lot of times we forget about it. The recovery is as important as the working out, So if you're stressed and you're eating really close to, you're working out every day way too much, and then you're eating really close to bedtime, what's going to end up happening is your body can't do what it's supposed to do in that recovery phase, which is, again, that's when you're getting the results. That's when the muscle's building. That's where you want to be. So.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
How did you actually get started in this? What was your motivation to make fitness your career?
Yeah. I always enjoyed fitness, and I used to do a lot of sports, and I did sports. I worked out to get better at sports, and what I found was I was working out and I was getting better at sports, and up until a certain point, and then I started getting injured when the workout started becoming almost more important to me than the sports, and I found that after a certain point, it made me a worse athlete, and I'm like, this isn't what I want. And then by my early 20s, I was feeling aches and pains and tweaks all the time, and I went up about 50 pounds heavier than I am now, which was not a good feeling. And then all the pain that I had prior to that got even worse. So what I first initially started doing is I wanted to just do it for myself, to get myself back in condition. But I didn't have health care. I couldn't afford a physical therapist. I didn't want to go get surgery. And so what I did is I started studying personal training, started talking to a lot of people, went and got some certifications. And then as I was working out and looking at fitness in a different way, it really evolved in some corridors to where the science was fully behind it. And I was able to, in a very short period of time, maybe 6 to 8 weeks, start feeling way better. And then maybe in about 3 months, make a huge transformation and take off the weight. And I felt so inspired, and so that I wanted to go, wow, this really does work, and I want to help other people. This isn't just about being a college kid or a high school kid who's in great shape because they're so young and have never dealt with major injuries or weight gain. This can help someone who's like in their late 30s and far beyond that. And over the course of time, since I got back into fitness and started helping people, I've found that it really doesn't matter when someone starts. They can really get great results, and it doesn't have to be this massive thing, much like the fitness and the nutrition. Those small things over the course of time make major differences. And so again, that's the nutrition philosophy. To get back to that question, it's that, it's the little things you do that make a big difference. And if you mess up, that's the other thing. Let it go. Don't get stressed out. The biggest thing I hear is people go, I'm eating great. I ate perfect yesterday. And usually their perfect means they ate way too few calories. And the next day they're starved and they mess up. And then they feel, oh, damned if I do, damned if I don't. And instead of having a cookie, they have the whole box. And they're, oh, well, I might as well do that because I didn't do it perfect. So, just trying to avoid seeking perfection and trying to enjoy your food. And yeah, those are, it's not some extreme case for nutrition. It's balanced, just like the workout routine.
Great. We're going to take a short break here. We're talking with Patrick Spring all about nutrition on Dream Power Radio, and we'll be right back. When is a car not a car? When it shows up in your dreams. Cars are one of the most common dream symbols. If you don't know why you're dreaming about cars or any image, it can leave you confused or scared. But that dream could be a solution to a pressing problem, or an insight into a solution that's been bugging you for years. Go to my website and sign up for a complimentary discovery session, and I'll help you understand why a dream is a terrible thing to waste. Go to thedreamcoach.net for more information.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio. We are talking with personal trainer Patrick Spring all about physical fitness. And instead of just talking about it, Patrick is now going to explain and demonstrate some of the exercises that he thinks are key to getting your own physical fitness. Patrick is standing in front of a universal gym, and he's going to explain some of the exercises he is going to do. So, Patrick, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Debbie. Basically, I'm here with a very versatile machine. There's lots of options, but hopefully you can see kind of the through line of where I can perform an exercise on this machine, like say a decline press here, and then you could also go and do something like a seated press that would replicate that. But something that I've seen in hotel gyms often, more so lately in like the last 5 years or so, has been these big cable crossovers. Again, and they're really good because they're very versatile. I also have a kettlebell and a couple dumbbells down here on the floor, which will come into the frame in a few minutes. But for the very beginning, what I want you to think of is every time you're working out, you're being pulled your posture is being pulled out of alignment by the resistance. And so what you want to do in something as basic as a squat, and this is one of the major movement patterns, just a squat, you're being pulled into, especially if you're carrying a weight, in this case, a kettlebell, you're being pulled into a hunch. You don't want to overcompensate and arch. You want to be just right in the neutral position here. So this is one of the major movements here, just squatting with some weight. When you're first starting, you could squat without any weight, or you could even put a chair behind you and just sit down and stand back up. At the beginning, that's what a squat looks like. A lot of times people will say, oh, I can't squat. And I'm like, well, did you get out of your car when you came in here? And they're like, yes. And so I'm saying you can squat in a modified version, and that's what you should do. Because again, listening to your body is important. So if you get in here and you start to squat and you go down below where you usually move and all of a sudden you feel some pain, you want to listen to that and not do that. Again, into that squatting pattern I was showing you, there's a squat. You could also do a front lunge. If you notice, my body's in a squat position on one leg. The back leg's not doing very much work at all. You could do a side lunge, which looks like this from the front. So those are some quick variations that you could do just in a squat pattern. When you go into that side lunge, you're being pulled sideways by momentum, and so what you want to do is just maintain neutral so the core position changes. When you go into the front lunge, the position changes too, because now there's a little bit of a side challenge, and depending on what your arms are doing, there's also a rotational challenge. So the core posture, even though it's here, it might be don't flex over. As you go into one leg, there's also a rotational challenge and a side challenge. When you go into the side, there's also many challenges. So you want to just be aware of that. And the main thing you can think of is just maintaining long spine, and that's the core challenge. What you don't want to do is just start to sway your body and lose your posture or overcompensate and come back the other way instead of maintaining that neutral posture. When it comes to a pulling variation, you can sit and do 2-arm rows. I'm going to do this on a slight angle so you can see it, but you can do 2-arm rows. That's pulling you forward into being flexed. You don't want to overcompensate and overarch. You just want to pull. You can also do alternating arms, or you can do a 1-arm variation. And you can progress up to all different variations, even down to 1 leg and 1 arm. If you have really good balance and you're strong and you keep the weight very light and you have a specific reason why you're doing it, you can progress to that. Is with regard to pushing exercises, and that's the third major variation, is pushing. Just you can do a static. First of all, sometimes starting an exercise, just see if someone can hold in the position. In this position, it becomes really apparent, and I switch my legs so you can see from the right side of the body all the way up to the head. I'm in a plank position. So what I don't want to be doing, I want to be maintaining that plank position and using my chest to drive the motion. That's the major motion. What I don't want to do is lock up my arms and start using my body to do the motion, because now I'm using my core in a very different way, and I'm using my shoulders in a way that's probably not going to be very healthy for me in the short term or the long term. Some of the variations you could do with this would be alternating arms. You could do a 1-arm press, whatever feels best to keep you in neutral. Sometimes it's holding the opposing arm straight, sometimes it's holding the arm on the hip, just depending on what helps you keep your torso from rotating away. So just that or this. You could also add a slight rotation, again, with very little weight for specific reasons. The more specific you get, the more you want to know exactly what you're doing.
Right, and I just want to say the other variation is the weight you're doing also.
Yes, exactly.
The weights.
Yeah, so you could, that's a big situation is you know, the weight you do and then the amount of sets you do, the amount of reps you do will change accordingly. Again, you're starting out with a very light weight, you're probably going to do a low number of sets with lots of reps and being careful to proper form. As you go heavier in weights, your number of sets will go up and the number of reps will go down. Accordingly, up until the heaviest weight, you might do something where you can get to like 5 sets of 5. So it's a very heavy weight. That's once you've mastered the exercise and you really understand what you should be feeling in that exercise, then it would be safe to progress to that heavier weight. And on a note on that is, don't also be careful not to use way too light of weight, because sometimes you end up doing so many reps or potentially the exercises with the wrong form. Because, for example, you're pulling with such a small amount of weight that you don't actually engage your back muscles and use them, make those the prime movers. You end up just kind of arming it because it's so easy. So if you do reps at weight that's way too light for your body, the problem is there's just so much exposure and there needs to be so much focus that sometimes I would just do body weight, keep the reps, really focus for 10 reps, maximum of 15, and then take a break, reset, and come back and do it again. But here's one last thing I'll give you, just because some dumbbell work you can do. You can do, there's a side plank challenge in here, right? if I'm 2 arms, just a regular shoulder press. But if I start doing alternating arms, now all of a sudden there's a side bend challenge here, or even more so if I'm doing 1 arms, you can also change the leg position for various reasons to kind of load up this hip more. And those are just some options. Just with 2 dumbbells in 1 exercise, there's some variations. When you're doing the heavier weight, it's probably going to be the 2 arms, more stable position or in a seated position. When you go medium weight, maybe it's in alternating arms, and when you go light, you want, within reason, you do a more complex variation. And again, just make sure that you're feeling it in the posture, in the targeted muscle, major prime movers that you're using to get the job done, that you're feeling it where you should be feeling it. So if you're pressing, that you feel it in your chest and you're not just feeling it all in your shoulder joint or in your neck or in your lower back, that, oh, I feel chest and I feel some core demand and I'm able to maintain that. So,
and what is the difference between using the dumbbells and the kettlebells?
So the dumbbells, basically it's what's most comfortable. So if I'm doing, in the kettlebells, there's a whole list of exercises, and there's a whole technique that you can learn, and there's very many variations that you can do with the kettlebells. I'm not using them for that. I'm just trying to use it for how it facilitates the movement pattern best. Sometimes it's more comfortable just to set this up and have the weight just right in here. If I'm going pretty heavy, it's really comfortable just to grab this. If it's really heavy, I would probably use something more like this. Here, just a hex bar where I can get inside it, and you can see I can move however I want within this, and it's really set up for lifting. Nice heavy weight. I don't have to, if I'm using a straight bar, I might be cracking my knees, or the technique might change to stop me from skimming my shins on the bar, whereas this is working around me. So if I'm going really heavy, I'll use something like a hex bar. If I'm going medium, I might use a kettlebell in here. And if I'm going really light and I'm just trying to get someone used to having some weights and they have the proper form, and I might just use them with some dumbbells, because a lot of times they're just easier, maybe less intimidating to grab than a kettlebell. But again, I'm not married to any form. The cable's going to be a slightly different resistance profile than the dumbbell, than the kettlebell, than the hex bar. So just how is it working best for your body and how much weight are you using? Those are the factors that usually determine what I'm going to use.
Okay, now Patrick's going to show us a different set of exercises using a different piece of equipment.
Right, and this is a little more specific equipment. Here, it's a lat pull down variation, and this is just a basic variation here. These are two handles instead of a straight bar, so you can bring it down to the sides here without cracking yourself in the head. If you did have a bar, I'd recommend just bringing it in front, not behind the head. For most people, they don't have that mobility. And there's some other factors going on there with the shoulders and the neck position. So just simple lat pull down. On this too, even though it's a specific machine, because it has the cables, it can be slightly versatile in that you can alternate sides, right? When you're doing both sides together, the challenge for posture is that you're being pulled into an arch. You want to maintain neutral. When you start doing the side, not only are you being pulled into that arch, but you're also being pulled sideways, like a side plank challenge. And that's the core emphasis there. You switch it and make it even more of a core emphasis. You can do it one arm at a time with a slightly lighter weight. The other thing is you can do is, because it's free in here, you could also do this whole standing up, right? You could also do alternate arms standing up. You could also do one arm standing up.
And I see that in those movements, you're keeping your back perfectly straight.
Yeah, from the hip to head in those movements, it's perfectly neutral. And the same goes for this one here. You can do a standing variation, both arms together. You can do alternating. You can do alternating piston. You can do one arms. The possibilities are endless, again, especially when there's cables involved. But the thing is, although the possibilities are endless, the possibilities to kind of mess it up or go wrong can also be that way. So if you have some of those basic principles, like watch your breathing, your posture, stay in the major movement pattern, and keep your feet solid on the ground, those will help you even when there's some versatility involved to make the exercise safe and effective.
Okay, Patrick, we are just about out of time, so I have time for one final question. That is, how do people find out about your book and find out about you?
Oh, great. Well, you can go to IRT.fitness to find out about my book. It's access to the website. It also has access to the book and directions of how to get to the facility and contact me. And also the book can be purchased on Amazon. It's IRT Intrinsic Resistance Training, Health and Fitness Perspective. So, and if you put in that and Patrick Spring, it'll pop up there. And also it's at Barnes & Noble online as well. So those are some of the things, the website and Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Great. Well, thank you, Patrick. Thank you for being on Dream Power Radio today. This is Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. And until next time, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio, on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International.